You have a presentation for us, so I'll let you take it away.
Okay, our last session, you guys passed a counter offer over the table for a 5% increase.
Yes, sir.
We are prepared to have that discussion tonight and talk about our counter offer. I have with us Ms. Zerker, our Chief Financial Officer. She will be presenting information for tonight regarding salaries.
Okay, first thing I want to do is clarify some information based on some things that I've read in the paper and heard said. And we're just going to give some general information again on the funding and go from there. One of the biggest things I've heard confusing, I want to clarify, is how the district funded most of its budget priorities. They did it with non-recurring dollars. They did it on a grant style. You're familiar with grants. You apply for a grant, you get told you're going to get so much money, you have 3 years to spend it, and at the end of it, it either goes away or you found a way to sustain it. So these have been funded on a 3-year basis with non-recurring dollars and a grant, and that means at the end of 3 years, if the owners haven't found a way to sustain it, it goes away. Now, two important items up here are the instructional coaches and the social workers, because the non-recurring dollars those were funded with were the federally connected dollars. And with those dollars, we have to be spending it on a broad basis, and that's what we use to fund that with. Now, salaries come for recurring dollars, not non-recurring. So we're actually taking a risk. And in trying to do some of the things, we've gotten really creative in doing this. But there's still a risk out there. We hope the return comes back and we can make it happen. But there's still a risk that we can't fund these in 3 years. The other thing I've heard a lot read in the paper is raises, salary increases. So I just want to remind everyone, including my own bargaining team, that in fiscal year 13-14, it was a 4.53% increase. The district got new FEFP dollars at 22.6. 14-15 was 2.12. The district got $13 million. 15-16, it was 5.1. The district got $22.8 million new dollars. Last year was 1.3. We got $7.3 million. We're still trying to figure out between the two groups where we're going to come out at. And this year our new dollars was $7.8 million from the FEFP. It's also important to note over those 4 years that is an average of 3.26% increase over 4 years. One thing that I've also heard a lot of talk about is what has the superintendent gotten? So I want to share with you what he has gotten along the way as well. Of course, he wasn't here for the first 2 years, so he didn't get anything. 15-16, when the district, all employees got 5.1. The 5.1 he was just authorized July 1st was for that raise that he did not get in 15-16 at the time the rest of us got it. Last year he got no money. And this year is still to be determined. His pay by contract is tied to what 12-month employees get. Okay? So if we look at that, you can see some differences there. Let's just do a reminder of where we are financially. I mentioned the $7.8 million that we got, actually 7.9. We had mandated usages, which included FRS, which benefits all employee groups because that's what we have to contribute to your retirement. Unfortunately, charter schools continue to grow, so we had to share money with them, and new units for the new year. So we ended up in the red at the beginning of $190,000. The district started back in the spring looking at what can we do because we were afraid there wouldn't be enough money. And we located from March 1st through July, $4.9 million of recurring dollar savings that came from district level departments and shutting down the district office. The last thing we got the board to agree on, and that was a discussion, lengthy discussion, was the federally connected, the recurring $2 million moving back over to the operating fund so that we could put that in play for what was needed. So our available recurring is $6.7 million. Talk about the cost of increase. Last time I was here, we talked about an offer I put across the table for 1%. My fiduciary duty, Dan, I've heard you say, your duty is to the teachers, your bargaining group, totally agree. Chief Financial Officer of the district, my fiduciary duty is to all of our employees, 1010, Dolores is here to watch, and our non-bargaining as well. All of my costs are across the board, all employee costs. Salary increase for 1% is $3,625,000. Fringe on that, $642,000 for a total cost of $4,267,000. This bargaining unit proposed a 5% increase in its counter. That's $18,125,000 for all employees with a fringe of $3,202,000 for $21,337,000 to provide a 5% increase. That's a difference of $17,070,000. Again, our available funding is $6,727,000 if we were to apply all of that towards any increase, which still leaves us $14.6 million. So, what does $14.6 million equate to? It's first important to understand that salaries and benefits, that's people, is 80.75% of our total budget. It's a lot of money. So the only way we can start finding that is to start looking at positions. Just what it equates to, 306 teaching units out of our 4,600 teaching units. 544 custodial units out of our 580 custodial units. 221 district-wide support service units out of 395. Or some combination of the above, looking within our 9,300 employees and finding the ones that we can eliminate. Because that is none of those or any other option is something that this district is willing to do, we reject your offer of October 9th, 2017. What we come prepared with in our money is 1.3%. That is equivalent to the total dollars, the total percentage increase we gave last year, and Rivers is passing out this document. It would take the previous employees or ends to $200, effective to $556. This is total combined. Highly effective, $675. It's also important to point out that highly effective and effective are getting state bonuses. We would love to have had that money pushed down to the district level. We could certainly be adding that in to raises, and it's where we would prefer it to be because it benefits you better. But legislature didn't give us that opportunity because they wanted to take the credit for it. We put those together, $1,356 for highly effective, $1,875 with the highest percent increase combined to money taken home this year in the paycheck, 3.9%. And also, for full disclosure, you can see the differences over what we settled for last year and what we're proposing this year. That's all I have.
You guys have any questions?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you,
You're
Ruby.
welcome.
Okay, so that offer, what we passed across the table at our, the September 20th, the conditions and how we would pay them out is still the same. It would be, I did make some changes to the language at, with your concerns as far as, salary adjustments being paid out based off of Summary Part 2 evaluation. You remember we had that discussion?
I don't remember them being my concerns, but yeah.
Well,
they were
we
somebody's
said based off
concerns.
Summary Part 2, and you raised the issue that people may
Oh,
not understand
you're
what
correct, sir.
Summary
Those
Part
were my
2.
concerns. Yeah,
Okay.
we don't want it to be VAM only. It'd have to be the whole thing.
It's the whole thing, which Summary Part 2 is a combination of the Summary Part 1 and the student achievement scores. So I'm fine with putting that in the language and proposing to be salary adjustments will be based on the outcome of the Summary Part 1 combined with the student achievement scores to create the Summary Part 2 evaluation. Then, of course, the language being paid retroactively back to July 1 for the increases in a lump sum is still the same as we proposed last session.
Do you have anything else for us? We had some language talk too. I don't
Well,
wanna
we'll
steal
hope
your
that we can
thunder.
talk about this first, and then we can get to those other two pieces of language. Do you wanna have any more discussions about the salary?
I don't have any more discussion on salary. I'm gonna have to, we're gonna work as a team and caucus on some of this.
You wanna caucus on that now?
Not if we have language to talk about.
Well, we could talk about the language after we talk about salaries, because I have Ms. Zerka here, that needs, hopefully, not be here, until late tonight. If we can talk about that so that we can dismiss her, that would be, great.
Actually, what I'd like is to, see where we are on the, annual contract reappointment, because we're gonna caucus and talk about this. I don't know how long that's gonna be. Do you have a response for us for annual contract?
Yes, I went back and we reviewed it, and again, we're still at the same point we were at before. We believe that's still a condition that is not, allowed by law.
That was the big one, actually. Let me just pass this across the table. That way when we caucus, at least you have something to look over. All I did, I mean, I'll just save you the mystery of this. I'll save the drama of it while I'm walking across the room. What we did is we took that chart and we just tried to reduce it to language.
Okay.
So at least you can grade the assignment and see if we did that. But if you're trying to figure out what is this all about, I was afraid to just given this and go, what is this all about? It's about that flow chart.
Okay.
And maybe the rest of it, we're just gonna bounce through very quickly. And then we'll get to a caucus and make sure that Penny isn't here all night. Thank you, Ron. Actually, I hope I gave enough over there. Some more of y'all showed up.
So you want to go through all of the language?
It'll be very fast.
Because I have, you also, I owe you a response on the evaluation, satisfactory ratings.
Okay. I just wanna make sure, as you start talking to money, things can wrap up in a hurry, and we have some important topics I just don't wanna get swept off the table. I've seen it happen before where
It won't.
something happens with money and then all your language is kinda like, okay, we're done. There's gonna be very little discussion here, I mean, unless you have questions, but. Did you want us to,
Well, I'm gonna give you just what we had on the annual, the unsatisfactory ratings, and I mentioned.
Okay.
Cause we did make some changes.
we were, okay. So we'll just fly through our sheet, and then I'll let you take us through your sheet, and then we'll. Okay, looking at our document. Oh, I forgot, darn it, I forgot to do the line numbers, I apologize. That's why I did this on Word, just so I could do line numbers for you. Okay, my apologies. Okay, first thing, we're resubmitting, that's exact language, there's not a change to it. Do you need another copy? I have some more copies, sir. We need more of our copy?
Did y'all get any?
Of our document?
I just didn't.
Do we need more? Sorry about that.
No.
Rivers, do you have enough of our document?
I believe we do.
Okay. I just wanted to make, this is my pattern every session, I wanna make sure we know what's on the table in case everything wraps up. The first thing is a resubmit, it has to do with Enrich being down, there's no changes in that language if you're looking at it. The next piece, the long piece, the biggest thing on that page, that is, our attempt to, put into writing what was on that flow chart. And I'm already noticing a minor mistake, that last piece at the bottom where it says, new offer, union new offer, delete current two, that should be underlined. I apologize for the confusion. That's the part that basically explains that we're leaving the board with their power as the law just required.
We said delete number two, current two.
Right, you see there's some language
That's
underneath,
all
it.
the
Nothing
language.
contained in this section is meant to take the school board's final authority. All that sentence should have been underlined. Because it's new language, not in our contract right now. Okay, on the back, I suppose this is one you, what I'm giving you is the same language we gave you before. It sounds like you have a counter for it. So, we'll discuss your counter in just a moment. The next piece, Rick actually reached out to me during the week and apparently he's putting together, something for that. We told you we would draw that language. Rick, you were working on something basically you just telling me that you're assuring me that project is going forward would be enough for me to.
I'm trying to pull some numbers together, or some contacts.
Okay. By Christmas, do you think that could, by
Well,
winter break?
actually,
is
it's
that
already
fair?
out there.
What's that?
It's all already out there in the district directory.
Right, I just wanted a mini directory for teachers to, I'm setting a very low threshold for withdrawing this language. You just tell me that it's a project you can get together, teachers will know who what some call it is. Okay. You didn't quite, just a little more reassurance. Maybe after the caucus, you'll say, yes, Dan, we can get that five phone numbers for every teacher, or a nice chart that tells them what to look at. And then there's a resubmit of that last thing. Rivers, I gave this to you last time, and you basically said, well, no, we can't do that because it's something we'd have to work on all year. It probably wouldn't be ready till next year. And if you look at the language, that's kind of what we're suggesting. Take this school year to figure it out, and it wouldn't be into place until next year. So I think I would just ask.
Well, my statement was to see if it can be done. What this language would require us to do it. What if we find out this year that it can't be done? So that's why we could not agree to this language. This is on these transferring the sick leave.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway,
Just
that's
clarifying for you.
That's on the table. I'm just gonna, okay, do you wanna take us through, your document here? It looks like you have a counter.
So
for-
when we had our discussions on the annual evaluation, not receiving an unsatisfactory rating in an individual element, when we had those discussions, we discussed that observations kind of are for dimensions 1 through 4. So we did not codify that and put that into the language initially. So we went back and added that into the language. Where we're not agreeing with you all is with the being done by the, I think you said third interim is on your language.
Mhm.
So that's, we're not willing to agree to that, so we're willing to say that we're going to, before we place a U on their evaluation, that they, it be, excuse me, assigned at least once to an informal or formal observation, and/or the employee has engaged in conduct which rises to the level of discipline. So we are resubmitting our language with a couple of changes.
Okay, just tell me this, I mean, I guess I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm putting you on the spot.
It's okay.
The exact problem that brought this forward, I'm not gonna name a teacher, school, or anything like that, but the exact problem that brought this forward was a principal, they go in through, finally got a stack of paperwork. All right, here's a stack of paperwork. And I came in your room and did an observation. And I marked you a U.
Based off of what they saw in the classroom at the
Correct,
time.
correct.
Mhm.
I was in there a day ago, 2 days ago, within the last week. I put a U. That particular U was the first U of the year, okay? The next piece of paper already filled out and done is the final annual evaluation. Sign here, it's done. Okay? We took it to arbitration, and this district upheld that, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's how we do business. There's nothing wrong with that.
The
All right.
arbitrator did.
Does your I'm sorry?
You said the district upheld. Did
Yeah.
arbitration upheld?
The arbitration
uphold
did
that?
too, right,
Okay.
because we didn't have
All right.
that specific protection in our contract. And the district upheld that, yes, the way we do business, that's fine with how we do business, and the district defended that action of that principle.
Okay.
So my question to you is, does your language protect from that happening? Do you see where, can you explain to me, please, where your language protects that from happening to a teacher?
Well, it's not, I don't think it's for me to protect that from happening to a teacher. What it is that the district, we do our evaluations, we do our observations. If someone has been not performing well, they may have been needs improvement throughout the year, and we go in, we're doing another observation, and they drop below unsatisfactory, that a principal should still be able to mark that evaluation as unsatisfactory.
Okay.
So if that's answering your question with a yes, then it is based off the entire year.
I think the way I phrased the question, you answered it with a no, but I lost track of how I phrased it.
That's
But I
okay.
think
That's
you
all
did
right.
answer it, though. You did answer it, and thank you. All right, was there anything else to, your next piece is your annual contract language, is that pretty
Yep.
much the same?
Yes.
Is that a resubmit?
Yes.
Okay. And you have your salary, basically the way the salary works out by law, we have to look at the entire evaluation.
Yep.
And that's, I understand where you're going on that. All right, so we'll take a caucus?
Sure.
All right. Actually, let me give you one right quick assignment, just to see if anything changes. Sorry, everybody jumped up too. We did a request from the last session to this session, okay? The way it works is that to get your highly effective raise, or to get your effective raise, you had to have that evaluation last year, right? I mean, last school year, then the VAM comes in and we add it all up, and you got your evaluation. If you're highly effective, look to where the contract settled. If you're effective, look to where the contract settled.
Okay.
The number of teachers that's on this document,
That's just an estimate from last year. We don't know what that final number will be.
well, I already did a request. Well, that's right. Some things can change, right? Because when the VAM comes in, some people can go up or down.
Exactly.
But based on summative part 1, we don't have that many teachers back this year. The highly effective was in like the 4,200 range, and the effective was less than the 478. I might be able to find the exact numbers for you. I'm just gonna put that out and y'all decide if that changes your numbers, because you have it as 4,926 teachers earning a raise based on last year's evaluation. And teachers that were evaluated last year that came back this year, it's more in the 4,500 to 4,600 range than 4,900 range. So that might be some dollars can be swept up. But I just want to bring that to your awareness to decide when we caucus if that adjusts your numbers here. All right, are we going or are you going? Who's going?
We'll go.
You're going? All right. Welcome back. I guess first I'll ask if there was any adjustments on the money.
When we did a rough estimate of the numbers that were sent to you, Ms. Zerka, did a little rough estimate. It's not a significant, I think it's a minimal amount, roughly.
It's not enough to warrant trying to change the total number, because this is without VAM. And historically, the number of teachers go up in the areas after VAM, so, in the grand scheme of things, it's very small. And I'd rather not risk taking it up and going way out of my numbers.
Okay. Rivers, what we talked about, and I have to thank my team for making sure I was thinking straight.
Okay.
We've got, we have like 5, 6 pieces of language here in front of us, but really we've got 3 most important. I mean, they're all important. Anybody that gets swept up in one of these pieces of language is gonna feel it's very important to them, and it certainly is. But we've got 3 things right in front of us that, at least right in front of me, And Rivers, I ask you to join me in seeing these as very important issues. We got three things right in front of us. Salary, of course, and that's probably the easiest for everyone to relate to and you know, follow, keep track of. And that's the first thing people think of. Hey, how's bargaining going? Right, we think of salary. We have salary right in front of us. We have annual contract teacher protection, which is screaming at us. We have about 40% of the workforce in front of HR people that would know better than me, but I believe it's about 40% of our teachers right now are annual contract. Does that sound about right? Give or take 5%. I don't think we're quite at 50%, but we're pushing it. I know we're over a third. We have anybody that's been here more than 4 or 5 years, remembers the days of annual contract teachers, remembers the days that dozens of them were let go with no explanation, because there's no explanation owed. So that issue is it's screaming at me, and it should be screaming at all of us. All of us that care about teachers wanting to work here. And the other issue that's screaming at us is the evaluation protections. We went through this together, race to the top, together being the district and the union. We committed every single year to looking at it, to changing it, to tweaking it. Sometimes we work well together, sometimes we scream, shout it together over PGP and percents of points and this, that. And we found a hole in it last year, and we're looking to plug a hole here. And basically, we have to be able to protect teachers from a surprise you at the end. And I'll tell you, it wouldn't even been a concern if it hadn't been for that one teacher that was let go at the end of the year the way she was. And by the way, that principal's no longer in this county. That principal left as well a year later. Not saying it was related to that, but if anyone's worried their principal's the one, at least it isn't. But those are my three issues screaming at me. Money, Penny, you make the argument that times are tight. You make that argument well. I will say, in my years of experience doing this job, sometimes the task has been given to me and say, Dan, go find the money, and I've gone and dug and this and that, and everything's like, nope, Dan, that's not where it is, that's not where it is, that's not where it is, and then we find out a year or two later when everything shakes out, that's where it was, and Dan didn't figure it out. And I'm not suggesting that's going on now, but if the past is anything like the present, problems can come up and problems can be solved. I will say this, in past years, I've always looked at that district surplus and had my eyes on it and said, look at what happened in the budget last year. And I've always been told, Dan, that's hands off for salary dollars, because that's a non-recurring thing. It's like finding 20 bucks in your jeans before you throw it in the washer. That's not income, that's a surprise. That's not guaranteed, it's not a pay raise. And I've always been told, don't count on that for salary dollars, and yet I just watched it be spent for salary dollars. Just got the explanation how it was salary dollars. Everybody and their dog knows we didn't bring on all that new staff just to fire them in 3 years. Just as I've known for 12 years of doing this, not 12, at least 12 years being on the bargaining team, just as I've known that if you took that surplus money and put it into salary dollars, you wouldn't just, raise dollars, you wouldn't just take it back 2-3 years from now. Actually, I kind of like the idea of grant towards salary the way it was done. But if times are really that tight, we took on positions, and it coulda, shoulda gone to us, and I still think it coulda, shoulda, there could be something could be done for us. So with that said, here's my puzzle, Rivers. I don't want to give up on salary, and I cannot give up on these AC teachers. All right? To fit the salary piece in, because I'm still at 5%, but to fit that salary piece in, we might consider going to a 2-year contract. Let me put it this way. I'd like to propose going to a 2-year contract.
Okay. What would that look like?
Well, it would look like the cover would say 17, 18,
Well, I
18,
know what
19.
the
Okay, we
contract
got
would
that.
look like.
I was just being snarky. But it would look, and then we would have a raise this year and a raise next year and it'd be guaranteed. Volusia County just did it to our north. They just did 2.5% and 2.5%. And last year was the first year of the 2.5%. So their president gets to look at me and say, we already settled on 2.5%, we settled on a year ago. So bless you. So I'm gonna suggest that we figure a way to do a 2.5%, 2.5%. And I'm gonna ask you to caucus, consider it, run numbers, go whatever, do whatever's needed. But before we do that, I need to be very clear about this. I've gotta get something for AC protection. Even if you see a different way to do it. I gave you a nice chart to do it, I gave you the language to do it. I need something so we don't return to where we were 4 years ago. And I need something so I get the exact scenario I gave you. Here's your observation, here's your final. I can't have 2 U's in a row right there and that being the first U notice that we ever got. And you haven't given me a reassurance yet that that can't happen. I'll tell you, before this, the only reassurance I had was HR told me if that ever happens, you call me and I'll fix it, and that kept the peace for 5 years. And now HR's basically put me on notice and say, no, we will not take care of it, we'll take you to arbitration, or we took you to arbitration, but, you know, we'll defend it at arbitration if that's fine. So I need something. I need protection on the evaluation, I need more protection for the annual contract, and then we can consider a 2-year deal, where I'd like to propose 2.5% this year and 2.5% for next year.
Is that your counter offer?
That is our counter offer to this. I'll just put out there, your language, of course, matches the law about, you know, how the evaluation works into it. I mean, we'll wrap that up if and when we can wrap up everything else.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say regarding the unsatisfactory rating that you're describing, you said this was one principal did it to one teacher. So you say this is something that is in the forefront, but you're giving me one example of where it happened. So it hasn't happened outside of that one teacher and one principal who you say is no longer here.
It has happened. It's happened multiple times, but not to the point that it dragged down the final evaluation down to an end.
Okay.
I've had teachers call me up before and they say, hey, I just got an N for the first time. It was my final for the year. All year it was effective and I got an N. And I'll say, but where did you land overall? What was your final? I say, well, it was effective. I wish I was highly effective, but it was effective. And I could go to another piece of language and say, okay, it's effective, but you'll have a job. And so that I'm not going to come to you and go to arbitration.
Well, that's
For that, I'm
needs
gonna
improvement is a little different from
What,
what
correct.
So it was a needs
So
improvement.
we've had lots of and along the way we've had other examples of, hey, I just got a U. At the end of the year I got a U and I didn't have any notes. Bless you. And I'll take the headache from you, or I won't bring you the headache, and I'll say, that's the way that was, but it didn't affect your job. But in this particular, oh man, it was obvious. It was obvious what that principal was doing. Where they just kind of went through, they gave them the scores they'd been getting all year and said, whoa, I'm gonna have to give your job back. You're 3 points too high. And they went back and fixed a couple things. Of course, I just offered you an opinion, but it was pretty darn obvious that's what happened.
I'm glad you clarified
Yeah,
that you offered me an opinion, because that was about.
And the district took it all the way to say, yep, I don't see anywhere where a principal couldn't do that. And so, I mean, we can't take that evaluation protection from annuals and take the job security based on it. We can't take both and ask them to swallow this raise. I mean, we're here to negotiate, so
Okay.
maybe we can work something out.
And let me be clear, we're not the ones taking away the annual reappointment. That is the legislature that has passed a law that says that we cannot engage in those collective bargaining agreements that include a condition or a contingency.
Okay.
So it's not us.
We've been through this.
Yes, we have. So I just
Okay.
wanted to clarify.
I know how to
Say
read. I mean, if
we.
your attorney, or whoever in that building next door is reading the law about the school board, the school board can't be forced into something based on a contingency, blah, blah, blah. You and I read that law together. And no offense to attorneys, that law is not written on law school level. That is law book's written on a 9th grade level. And you and I have looked at that together.
And we
That-
disagree,
That law book says
okay?
that we cannot force the school board
Okay,
into doing something based on a contingency. And all I've asked is that a principal to stand by the evaluation, recommend to the superintendent, and I've asked the superintendent to stand by the evaluation system. That's it. School board may do whatever they want to do, as they do sometimes, as we know. They vote, they can pull something off the agenda, they can discuss it. Last time you were coming up with what-if scenarios, can anybody reach out to the board? Of course.
no, what we know is that if names are put on the school board's agenda for reappointment, the school board is gonna reappoint the list of names that is provided to them by the superintendent.
They can do-
They're
they-
not gonna go name by name and list by list and
They,
school
they
by
can,
school.
they can pull anybody off that
So
list.
that's what
as-
we know.
Of course, they can pull anything that goes on that agenda.
Mhm.
And we've seen this before, by law, by practice. Anything put on that school board agenda, they can pull, and they can vote it down.
Okay.
And we've seen them do it.
When there's individual items, but when it comes to reappointment, you know, because you said it in a few sessions ago, that
Mhm.
the school board takes the recommendations of the superintendent when it comes down to reappointing teachers.
They don't, no, I didn't say,
You did.
they don't have, well, yeah, they pay superintendent to make a recommendation to them.
Okay.
And then they can do anything with it. In fact, 2 years ago, on recommendation of the HR department I'm looking at, they pulled a principal off the list.
Okay.
It was a whole nice typed up list. It had dozens of principals on the list, and one of them got pulled. Got pulled for discussion, and was non-reappointed.
Mhm.
And that's just one example I know, and I'm not trying to be threatening to principals or anything, but that's just an example. I know that it can happen.
Okay. Okay, we'll take a minute.
Furthermore, I'd like it to state in our language that I recognize it can happen. Because that way, when it does happen, if it does happen, I can't come to you later and say, well, the school board, blah, 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 because you can point to me a law that says, well, the school board can do whatever they want. And your contract does not guarantee the school board will do it.
Okay.
And I'm telling you right now, I know it can happen.
All right, so we'll take a minute and discuss, your, counter offer of, 2.5% this year and 2.5% next year on a 2-year agreement.
And,
That is-
and those protections, please, the evaluation and the AC. We gotta do something, it's 40% of your workforce, sir. It's not about making Dan happy, I got my PSC, it's about 40% of your workforce that needs some protection. Thank you. All right, sir, welcome back.
Okay, regarding your salary proposal of a 2-year, 2.5% per year, counter proposal, we are going to reject that counter, proposal of the 2-year, 2.5% for each year. We can't forecast that far out, on the salary, first of all, but we're looking at doing a 1-year contract on salary this year. So what we have done is went back and had some discussions, and I'm gonna let Ms. Zerker, discuss what we can do, for this year.
Yep.
Whoop. Back to the big screen.
Go ahead. I went back and did what I could to find some money, to look at what I had available and come up with what's gonna be my absolute offer at this point. Go ahead and pull it up. 1.5%, $431 effective, added to the 200 for COLA.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna try to write it on this sheet, so I'm sorry if I'm
No, that's
asking you to
fine.
repeat.
That's fine. I'm gonna
That's
try.
Can you
one.
make it brighter?
Can you zoom in? There.
Sure, Rick, we trust you're working on that as fast as you can.
Yeah, so effective, 431, highly effective,
Whoa,
575.
whoa, whoa, I'm sorry. Effective was who?
431, this is the top section.
Oh, okay.
Highly effective, 575. come down to the summary.
There we go.
Can we bring it up, I mean, leave it at that level, but bring it up higher so they can see. So what it ends up making is effective $631, highly effective $775, 1.5% average, coming from the district.
Okay. And we can see the rest of the numbers are filled in as you've got it. Okay. We appreciate you taking time to do that. Rivers, can you do anything for us on the language? Because I don't want that overshadowed or swept up, so to say, so to speak.
Well, I don't think it's overshadowed. Regarding annual reappointment, we're still at the same spot that we were at. Anytime you say shall, you try to require the principal or the superintendent shall recommend, we believe that is a violation of the law. We've given you language on the annual evaluation that we have proposed to you all regarding an unsatisfactory rating. So we have passed that across. We believe that is good language. And we're not going to change that language based off of the conversations that we had. The other thing is that you keep discussing about this teacher that got this unsatisfactory rating. And I think I know which arbitration that you're referring to. And if I recall,
It's the
that
only one that we
teacher,
had, sir.
well, I wasn't here at the time, so it's not.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So the teacher that you were referring to, I believe, had multiple PDAPs for multiple years. So it wasn't as if this teacher came in one day and found out that they were unsatisfactory in their performance. So it's not just a matter of someone just sprung something on a teacher for the first time. They have multiple PDAPs with different administrators over, I believe, a 2-year period. Three-year period. So it was not something that was new to them. It was something that they were aware of, that the district had, and that administrator, multiple administrators had raised concerns regarding their performance. So I wanted to point that out. So the language that we are sticking with our counter proposal to yours that we passed across earlier today. It's not night yet.
All right. Well, let me just be clear about this. I'm not, we don't need to go back and forth and relive. I know I brought it up, so you get to throw that in my face, but I don't want to, we're not trying to re-arbitrate that arbitration. The lesson that comes out of it, though, we're not trying to go dig up that teacher and go fix that situation and change that evaluation. That teacher's in another county right now, working well, and the principal is in another place as well. But the problem is that the district upheld that's just fine how our evaluation system can work. That coupled with that you're not budging in the least on the annual contract reappointment, it's not an accurate reason. That's what the law says. And I gave a chart the last time where we could look it over and you could offer counters. I need principals to stand by the evaluation, and I need a superintendent to say that they'll supervise their principals appropriately where the teachers they want back are getting the good evaluations. I'll tell you, you can imagine, I get a lot of support. A lot of those emails come out when I send out the bargaining updates. I get a lot of people like, yeah, whole firm on money, we want money, rah, rah. But I get probably just about equal as many from annual contract teachers. And it's a statewide issue, meaning the people who do what I do in other districts are trying to solve this problem, and they're finding districts are being cooperative. They're finding that we will stop short of requiring a school board, those 5 elected officials or 7 elected officials, some other places have 7, they're saying we gotta stop short of tying their hands. But I'm disappointed that you're not gonna move on just the basic idea that a principal will stand by their evaluation?
Well, how you characterize it, I disagree with that. I think principals do stand by their evaluations.
Well, they
But
don't.
this is a legal question as
Well-
far as whether they have to recommend reappointment, whether the board can enter into a contract. But this is a contract between the board and the union, not between just the principal or the superintendent, it's the board and the union. And you're asking us to enter into a contract we know that is not in compliance with the law.
Here's
Because
what-
you are requiring that they be recommended for reappointment. And then with the hopes that maybe the board will read we'll go through line by line and look at each person's name, and ask for each person's evaluations or each person's history or whatever.
Actually, I really don't hope that happens, Rivers. I really hope that a principal, I really hope that the superintendent
Mhm.
will tell their principals. And we had this conversation a couple of years ago, and I got agreement from the outside when we had this conversation a couple of years ago. I really hope that the superintendent will continue to tell principals, we want good teachers, and if they're worth being rehired back, that they should land on effective or highly effective. If they are struggling, and if they're not right for Brevard schools, they should know that early in the year, they should get support. And if at the end of the year they haven't grown or made the level that they need to be to rehired back, that they won't land on effective or highly effective. And that should be the message from the superintendent to principals. Should probably be the direction from the board to the superintendent, but I think a superintendent would know that automatically.
Mhm.
And a principal at the end of the year should be proud to say, this is a good employee, so they should come back. And a superintendent should be proud to say, I support my principals. And as the law says, the board should be able to do whatever the board wants, whatever they see fit to do.
And
Now,
I
you and
don't
I've
think
already-
that, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You and I were, I mean, we spoke last time, looking at that flow chart, which is long gone. Our proposal, you know, we've got 3 steps to reappointment right here. A principal shall, a superintendent shall, and then the board may. And we talked about how there's 2 shalls on the way to a may. The may gotta stay, the may has to be a may. But this is where negotiating can happen. And you haven't, I mean, you've given me no on everything. I thought you could have, maybe suggested something else besides no to everything, because where we are,
I did, I said, anytime you have shall in there, we believe that is a violation of the statute. So if there was a may, then we'd have discussions about that. And you responded at the time,
can you show me where in that piece of law, and I've got copies of it if you need it, where it talks about the actions of a principal?
no, it talks about the actions of a board.
Correct.
And what the board can agree
Correct.
to.
I
There's an
can't force
agreement
the
between
board
the
into
board.
anything. Can't force the board into anything. Is there anything in that language that says what a principal can do or can't do? I'm making the case that this language
I
is
know.
not tied to the hands of a principal or our negotiations with a principal.
Again, you are creating a contingency or condition not expressly authorized in the law.
That's talking about what the school board may do.
Mhm.
School board may not give something out based on contingency.
Okay.
I can't tell the school board you have to. Contingency means something happens, and I say because that happened, you have to.
Again, I think we disagree.
Are we gonna have movement on a 2-year deal? Can you commit to, some additional money for next year?
What do you mean commit to additional money for next year?
Any chance of a 2-year deal? You want me to go out to teachers and try to sell them a 1.5? Can you tell me for next year they'll get their 2.5 or their 3.5 or somewhere 5% over 2 years?
I don't think we're at a position where we can discuss what could possibly give next year. You're talking about next year's bargaining sessions and contract.
I'm talking about opening, well, we're allowed to discuss the notion of a 2-year deal. Is there any interest over there? And I'm just trying to find a way to water down.
Could we have the conversation about a two-year deal next year?
No, sir. Right here at this table right now.
We rejected your two-year offer for this year and next year. We already rejected that, so I don't understand the question. Because you said, can we talk about more money for next year?
I guess I just needed clarification. All right. It is 6:05, and we are on these three matters. Well, we have some other things on the table, but because of these three issues, sir, we are at impasse.
Are you declaring an impasse?
I am declaring impasse.
Okay.
We'll be in touch on next steps. I want to thank your team. Rivers, I want to thank you as well.
I thank you too.
You're in a tough spot. Penny, I want to thank you for coming out here. You don't print the dollars, I know that.
Nope.
No. I'm sorry, some of us think you do print, no, you don't print the dollars.
What did you say?
No, I said, she don't print the dollars. I want to thank your entire team,
Oh, okay.
your principals, your district staff. But we're gonna need some help on settling this.